I'm Sam from Cultaholic.com, and this is Graded for Friday Night SmackDown, where I take a look at the show segment by segment and award each little bit a grade from A+ to F. It was draft week this week, very big deal. They've been pushing it very hard. It's not just brand warfare anymore, it's channel versus channel, network versus network, USA against Fox. It's gonna be mental. So without any further ado, let's crack on with it. Hit the intro. So the night starts off with Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns, and it's the draft decider. So Roman Reigns represents SmackDown, Seth Rollins represents Raw, and whoever wins, well, their side gets to pick first. It's also worth noting that for every 2 picks SmackDown does, Raw gets a third because Raw has an extra hour. Oh, and there are 2 pools of talent to be chosen from, which I guess is just a way of them splitting up all the big names between both shows. But looking at the match, both guys go the sportsmanship route. You know, they're out there to do a job they've been told to do, get out there, represent the brand, may the best man win, and whoever wins obviously draft, blah 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 blah. Roman blocks a dive attempt early on, and there's a fair few flippy reversals to get things going. And eventually the guys bring the big moves, with Roman hitting like a one-armed sit-out powerbomb and Rollins hitting a pair of dives. There's a cool moment with Roman avoiding a stomp only to hit a Superman punch, and then he tries to follow through with a spear only for Rollins to catch him and hit him with a pedigree. But then, as the match is really starting to heat up, this is where things get a little bit mental. The lights go out, the sound effects start, the Fiend is here. So the Fiend crawls out of a hole in the ring, he grabs hold of Rollins, drags him into this pit, and all this smoke starts to appear. That sounds really cool, right? But then no, Seth Rollins just climbs straight back out of the pit. And then we have this weird moment where like the lights turn on and off a couple of times, and the sound effects sort of happen when the lights are on, and it's just really strange. And then the lights eventually go out, the Fiend sprints all the way to the top of the ramp, and then the lights come back up and he stood there posing menacingly. So it's a sort of non-finish on a draft deciding match, but Rollins is ruled the winner via DQ. There were fantastic shades of a match here, but that ending just detracted so much for me, and that's why it's getting a D+. I respect the balls on WWE to try and keep this thing going. Like, me and Tom were sat on the stream going, oh, could you imagine if the Fiend shows up? Then it happened. But yeah, that sort of weird disconnect of timing and Seth just crawling straight back out the hole, it sort of ruined the otherworldliness of the Fiend for me. And then after this match, we go to the top of the ramp where Stephanie McMahon walks out to a podium and announces the first draft picks. So the first pick in the 2019 WWE Draft overall is Becky Lynch, and she's off to Raw. Roman goes to SmackDown, the OC go to Raw. SmackDown gets Bray Wyatt, and Raw gets Drew McIntyre. And I've got a sneaky suspicion that somehow The Fiend is going to be drafted to Raw, so we're going to get a weird sort of disconnect between the two sides of the character. And then we go back to the ring for King Corbin versus Shorty Gable. Yes, Shorty Gable. Gable manages to keep Corbin sort of firmly under his thumb in the early goings in this one. He's able to throw him around a bit and he starts working over the legs. Corbin does manage to drive things to the outside though, and then when Gable comes off an announce table, like looking to, I guess, crossbody him or something, Corbin just catches him in midair, choke slams him straight into the announce table. There's an awesome moment here with a deep 6 that Gable somehow reverses into a bulldog, and Gable hits a moonsault, almost picking up the 3. He even manages to connect with that beautiful rolling suplex of his, but it's just not enough. Corbin connects with the End of Days and picks up the win. This one gets a C. It was a great little straightforward match. You know, I'm a huge fan of Chad Gable, can't quite speak for Shorty G yet, and sue me, I'm a bit of a fan of Baron Corbin. It was an alright little match, as I said, but it would be better if we hadn't seen the match 100 times already. We then go back to the top of the ramp. Stephanie is at the podium and she's there to reveal the second round draft picks of the 2019 WWE Draft. So Randy Orton goes to Raw, Sasha Banks goes to SmackDown, Ricochet goes to Raw, Braun Strowman goes to SmackDown. That one surprised me. I thought he was definitely going to end up on Raw. And then finally we get Bobby Lashley going to Raw. Somewhat strangely, it was around this point that we all started to realize, everybody in the world started to realize that WWE had somehow managed to spoil their own draft. So they had listed on the WWE website the pool of people that were available for draft, and they were all in order. So by the time the second bunch came out, it was like, yeah, and then it's him next, and then it's her, and we were able to all just sit and watch it happen. They eventually caught on to this toward the end of the show and mixed things up a little bit, but God, what an oversight. We then go back to the ring for a Paul Heyman Brock Lesnar promo. So it's all the usual shtick here from Heyman as Lesnar's advocate. He's putting over Big Les really hard as the champ. He even touches on the fact that Brock has been waiting 9 years to get his hands on Cain Velasquez, the man who stole his UFC title from him. Velasquez and Rey Mysterio then appear, and we see some stills from their last meeting in the UFC. And them's some grisly stills. You see how Brock got that scar. If you've never seen it before, there is just a giant open gaping wound on his face. And the best part of this was when we cut back to Lesnar from that final shot of his face all torn up, he sort of just gently rubbed the scar, like he was acknowledging it. Velasquez then promises at Crown Jewel he's gonna give Brock a scar on the other side to match. I'm gonna give this one an A. I loved it. I loved the use of the UFC stills. It was a little weird having Rey out there, but you know, it sort of works in the confines of the story. But yeah, I loved the use of the UFC stills. I loved the whole, you know, like cutting from the torn open cheek to him like touching the scar, and it's going to be a hell of a match. I really hope they let them sort of get quite violent here. The next match is the New Day versus the OC. So Woods is immediately taken out here. He's driven to the outside and thrown into the ring steps. And after a break, we come back and Kofi's in action, but it's just sort of weird. Like, I don't know if it was just me, but he just sort of seemed to have just gone poof, like back to tag team. Like there's not even like a sniff of a rematch. He's just sort of seamlessly, boom, straight back into the old seat. You know, this time last week he was still the champ, but now it's just business as usual. He does take it to AJ though, and after a bit of back and forth, hits the boom drop. Gallows tries to take him out though, but Woods gets the comeback and takes care of Gallows and Anderson. Styles then nearly hits the phenomenal forearm, but eventually Kofi hits the Trouble in Paradise to pick up the 3. I'm gonna give this one a C+. It was fast, it was fun, but as I said, it's just weird. Like, that guy was champ last week. Why isn't he getting in Brock's face? Why isn't he trying to insert himself into this Velasquez thing? You know, like, you can't just ignore the fact that he was champion. Kofi should be saying, you know, screw Cain Velasquez. Like, he'll get his chance, but I want my rematch. He did look aggressive though, and that was good. I don't know, you know, if it was just sort of a necessity to have this match tonight, but I really hope they do something with him and the New Day. Maybe, I thought they were going to go for like a Crisis of Confidence style storyline, but that's obviously not the case after the win. We then have the round 3 draft picks, and they start with Alexa Bliss to Raw and Lacey Evans to SmackDown. Kevin Owens goes to Raw, the Revival go to SmackDown, and Natalya goes to Raw. After a break, it's straight into draft picks round 4, and they start with Viking Raiders to Raw, Lucha House Party to SmackDown. Then Nikki Cross goes to Raw, which is really weird because Alexa Bliss has already been picked, and they sort of said that anybody who's a tag team can be selected as 1 pick rather than 2 if you were going to keep them together. Does this mean that they're not a tag team? But then they uploaded a video with like Alexa saying she was happy she gets to stay with Nikki Cross. I think they just forgot their own rules, as they sometimes do. Heavy Machinery go to SmackDown, and Street Profits, the final pick of the night, go to Raw. And then we go to the main event of the night, which is Charlotte Flair against Bayley for the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. So out comes Charlotte first, all in red. We all know what that's supposed to mean if you're a Flair, but I don't think any of us were ready for what happened next. Bayley's music hits, it's all bright and happy. She comes out with a hoodie on, hood up, and she's spinning around, and she gets in front of the Bayley buddies as they inflate, and her music stops. She pulls down her hood, and she's got shorter hair, it's dyed black. She unzips to reveal gold and black ring gear, and then she walks off to the side of the stage, coming back with what looks like a baseball bat with like razor blades on it. She then proceeds to just straight up murder the Bayley buddies. The wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men are no more. Bayley is no longer the small childlike character. She's not full of wonder, she's just sort of full of anger and hatred. It's great. She's darker, she's more serious, and she's more driven. And it's even noticeable in her in-ring style. The match starts and she's straight on Charlotte. She doesn't let up at all. She's aggressive. Charlotte manages to drag her to the outside though and throw her into the crowd. She's not going to let this take her out though. She gets back in the driver's seat, takes Charlotte back into the ring, and proceeds to try and just choke her out with the ropes. Charlotte tries a crossbody sort of over the top rope to the outside, and then back in the ring she tries to lock in the figure 4 or the figure 8, and Bayley won't let her get it. She gets straight to the ropes. At this point it's quite clear that Charlotte appears to be busted open from the mouth. She's sort of got blood all up the side of her face. Things spill to the outside again, and Charlotte hits a really cool moonsault. Like, given her height, it's quite like dangerous, but she hits a really cool moonsault off the crowd barrier. She fails to capitalize fast enough though, and takes Bayley back into the ring, attempts a moonsault, but this time she's got her scouted. Bayley gets her legs up to try and reverse, but Charlotte manages to land, grabbing the legs, and turns into a Boston Crab almost seamlessly. Bayley does manage to get out though. She hits the Bayley to belly and the elbow, but Charlotte kicks out. Bayley then gets really angry. She starts arguing with the ref. She drops to her knees in anger, and this is where Charlotte is able to hit the natural selection. But this proves to ultimately be Charlotte's undoing. She goes for the figure 8, and Bayley small packages her and picks up the win. So new entrance music plays Bayley out here. It's sort of like heavier. I don't know if it's actually her music or they just use something darker just for this moment, but yeah, heavier, guitar-driven music. She's holding the belt up. She calls us all bitches on the mic afterwards and just says sort of like, screw all of you, I think was the exact quote. And this one gets an A. It was by far the match of the night, from the second that Bayley turned on her Bayley buddies to her hitting that small package and picking up the title. I loved everything about this one, and I think it's safe to say that Charlotte's going to be moving over to the red brand. But I can't wait to see what this new Bayley character is gonna do. Like, it looks like she's sort of completely cast aside this childish side of herself. She doesn't have, you know, the ponytail anymore. It's no bright colors. It's just all business. She just seems to be focused, driven, angry, and an adult, not a child. But in terms of an overall grade for SmackDown this week, I'm gonna give it a C+. A great main event, a great Heyman promo, a great half of the opening match until the weird end bit with Rollins crawling back out the hole, and it didn't really make much sense to me. And just seeing Kofi push back into his old spot made me sort of sad. I hope they're going to do something there. I guess time will tell, but heel Bayley, I am all about heel Bayley. I never thought I would see the day, and this has been graded for Friday Night SmackDown. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic. You can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you like what we do here at Cultaholic, you can check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/Cultaholic. And no matter what you do, don't ever forget to hit subscribe and join us.